Patrick Surtain won Defensive Player of the Year for 2024, and NFL legend Charles Woodson believes there is someone in this draft class who reminds him of PS2. And spoiler, it is someone that I have talked about before on the channel. Now, here at Chat Sports, we sent a crew of 6 guys to New Orleans for the Super Bowl, and one of those 6 guys, producer Sam Brown, was able to ask NFL legend Charles Woodson, who in this draft class maybe reminds you of PS2? And I think you guys might enjoy his answer. Here it is.
Charles, when you look at Will Johnson coming out, where do you think he stacks up in terms of development, in terms of where you were when you were coming out of Michigan? Will Johnson.
Will, yeah. Will, man, is a phenomenal player, man. Size, to me, we were just talking about Travis Hunter and Travis' size, length. Will has that same thing. Will reminds me a lot of Patrick Surtain, just the way their build is, height, length, the whole nine, the way they move. And I think at the next level, I think he's going to do very well. I think he showed you in college that he has the skills. He can go out, he can play on the island. I think he can follow the best receiver around if you need him to do. But I think he's another guy. As a young player, if he benefited from, if he was get to a team like the Eagles, like you got Quinyon Mitchell play with this great defense, then you could have a team that could be in the same position. So I see him on the next level, man, having a great deal of success, and can't wait to see him on the next level.
Will Johnson has been my top draft target for the Falcons pretty much since the start of the offseason. And those top draft targets are likely going to change a little bit during the pre-draft process, but he's going to remain number 1 for me. Now, full disclosure, it would be a little bit of a reach for him to be there at 15. But we are talking about the most unpredictable thing in the world, the NFL draft. So while it likely will require a little bit of a fall, he is my number 1 target. He did not play a ton of games in 2024, so I think he's a little bit off of people's radars as a result. But what I remember from his 2023 season is too good to pass on. Does Atlanta desperately need a corner? No. Their number 1 need is a pass rusher. They had the 31st ranked pass rush defense in 2024, but I see a corner who I think is just going to be a perennial Pro Bowl level guy. And I can't pass on someone who I think is going to be a lockdown corner at the next level. I would love for this team to get a pass rusher, but if Johnson is there at 15 and me and Woodson thinks he could be the next Pat Surtain Defensive Player of the Year, we will be kicking ourselves in 3 or 4 years if the Falcons pass on someone that good. So he is my number 1 target for Atlanta, no doubt about it. Pairing him with A.J. Terrell would form one of the best cornerback duos in the NFL. Then you sprinkle in Jesse Bates on top, and yes, the pass rush still needs to get to the quarterback, but it's going to be a lot more difficult for players to get open against this Atlanta secondary, and I think it's going to be a top 3 secondary in football with the incision of Will Johnson along Terrell and Bates. So, if he is there at 15, Terry, I know you're watching. Please take him. Don't get me wrong, it's a little bit of a reach, but I have seen some mock drafts with Johnson falling all the way to Atlanta at 15. Last year, no defensive player was taken until 15. There are plenty of examples in the NFL draft of players falling a little bit further than most analysts predict. And maybe you require a slight trade up if he starts to slip a little, like Justin Fields in 2021 when the Bears jumped up from 20 to 11 because very few people thought he would escape the top 10. So, if the true shutdown, lockdown corner from Michigan is available and that is the pick for the Dirty Birds, how would you grade it? I'd give it an A+. I think that casuals who don't really pay much attention to the offseason, which I'm not shaming those people because everyone's got busy lives and the NFL draft is a crapshoot, but that group of fans might, poo-poo it, stick their nose up to it. But you and I watching right now know that this guy has the talent and the making of a lockdown corner with extreme ball skills, and the pick sixes showed that 2 years ago at Michigan. If Atlanta is able to secure Johnson at 15, This would be, I think, not a dream offseason, but an offseason that I could really get behind. They go edge rusher at round 2 out of Ole Miss. It is Princely Umanmielen. Excuse me, I try to pronounce that a million times before the video. Umanmielen, and then Khalil Mack, free agent out of the LA Chargers. But let's talk about Princely for a moment. We've talked about him briefly on the channel, but Umanmielen, I tried a million times. I'm really mad at myself here. 6'4", 264 pounds. It's about the lights. When the lights come on in the middle of the video, everything I rehearsed beforehand just goes out the back door. So more on Princely here. Let's stick with that. He is likely not going to be an every down player at the next level. He is a pass rusher. He's got a good, deep arsenal of pass rush moves. I think he is someone that can be a great threat on third down. I think he's good against the run. I don't think he's a great run stopper. And that's probably what's keeping him from being a first-round pick. Because on defense, if you go round 1, the expectation is you can play in any scenario out there. I don't think he's going to be a great run stopper early in his career. So maybe a little bit like Arnold, where he's a pass rush guy that falls to round 2. I'm hopeful he can be a bit of a better pass rusher than Ebiketie, though. In his lone season for the Rebels, 10.5 sacks, 14 tackles for loss, 55 pressures, transferred from Florida to Ole Miss, and had a breakout campaign under Lane Kiffin in what was a really stacked and loaded defense. You can look at his numbers throughout his entire collegiate career. His last season in Gainesville, 7 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. You guys know where I stand on production. It is an absolute must at the pass rusher position, and he's got it for me. Before we talk about Khalil Mack next up on the show here, I do want to give a shout out to PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players. PrizePicks also has an awesome deal for everyone who's planning to watch the big game. And my fiance is not a huge football fan, but with PrizePicks, we can make a couple of selections, and all of a sudden, she's now more interested in the game than the commercials for once, which will be a big win for me. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. So let's say Atlanta goes corner in round 1. Well, this would require a little bit of hindsight, but if they were to add Khalil Mack in March during free agency, or maybe they sign him after the draft if he is still available, I think that could make an edge rusher pick in round 2 instead of round 1 a lot more manageable for the fans and for the team itself. I don't think I need to speak too much on Khalil Mack's resume. We're talking about a defensive player of the year. We all know he is probably he's a future Hall of Famer. That's a silly word to say. Now, the last couple of years have been up and down for Mack. 2 years ago, he had 17 sacks and 5 forced fumbles. Last year, it dipped down to 6 sacks. Why the dip? Well, I could think of 2 reasons. One, probably an element of age, father time catching up to him a little bit. And then number 2, lack of snaps. He played some of the fewest snaps in his NFL career last year. They had a second-round pick, JT Tumulilo from, bad day for me pronouncing names, from USC 2 years ago in the draft. They wanted to get into a larger role, so they started to prioritize him more on the field over an impending free agent like Mack. However, I still think if you give him a 75%-ish snap threshold, this guy can turn out 7, 8, 9 sacks, kind of like what Bud Dupree and Calais Campbell did 2 years ago for Atlanta, but I think even better than that. So I'm willing to buy in on Mack. Other people might be overlooking him with his age factor. He's going to be turning 34 in about 2 weeks, coming off a 6-sack campaign. They might think, oh, he's old, he's washed. No, I just think he had some snaps taken away from him, and if you return those snaps, you are going to get a lot of production. I don't think he should be playing 80, 90% of snaps for the Falcons, but you bring it back to more than just being a third down rusher, and you might be able to get some really good production out of him. Now, I will own up to this is a Band-Aid. This is a temporary fix. These are not draft picks and free agent signings that can set up the Falcons pass rush for the future. And that is something that if you don't want to come to terms with, I can't fault you for that. Because there are some really good pass rushers in this draft class that you could get at 15 that could be guys who get 10-plus sacks for you for multiple years over the next decade. But I think looking at this front five right here, you've got some younger players like Rook and Braylon Trice, who's going to be coming back from a torn ACL. And if you were to bring back one of your free agents, maybe I doubt you bring back Judon, but maybe Eddie Goldman on the inside, something like that, or Lorenzo Carter, you would have a better pass rush. And sure, it wouldn't be maybe as fun as taking someone 15th, but you will thank me 3 to 4 years from now when Will Johnson is a top 10 corner in the NFL and he's on your favorite team. Before we sign off, I just want to go over one quick news item here. The NFL draft hats for this year have been leaked. I don't know if it was an intentional leak or what, but here's the Falcons draft hat. My 2 cents on draft hats, we care way too much about them. Every single year, everyone gets worked up over them. We all agree they suck, and for whatever reason, we allow it to actually take up conversation. I'm mad at myself right now for even talking about this and wasting your time with it, but I do feel an obligation to share the news, and here's the news. That's the Falcons draft hat. We got the big game coming up. Who do you got? Chiefs or Eagles? This is the last video I am filming before I go, home for the weekend, home just off the weekend. So I thought we'd do some score predictions. Chiefs, Eagles. I'm not changing my score prediction. This is it. We've got Eagles taking down the two-time, production Mafu here. I got Eagles winning 31-21. Sorry. We had the new guy build the graphics for today's show, and it's been a little bit turbulent. So, Eagles win it 31-21. Let me know your score prediction down below in the comment section.